It is likely that you've heard about creation, if you've not internalized a message as such from a previous incarnation. It is also likely that your charge has a story of creation they believe, tied to their view of patterns of life. For most mortals, a necessity and a joy, a comfort, to imagine the world being built up and created, rather than being something that occurred in rarity, in happenstance. It is likely your charge will enjoy telling you, without desire of interjection, this personally imbibed creation story as a parable, or a poem, or a song. Perhaps a story ethereal, even if your charge is not prone to a flight of fancy or fantasy. The word firmament may be used to express the difference between the sky and the deep waters that flow, clear and crystal blue down to the deepest purples and blacks. This firmament, this creation, is its own heaven. It quells the fears of large, strange things down in that shadowy water that should not be seen or spoken of, that live in the fears of all our charges, that are called alien, something other. They are alien. They are something other. They make noises and, what is worse, the creation of absence. They feast thoughtfully, having survived and scrounged and refined their form for years and decades and generations in the darkness. They see without light. They see without religion, without ear. They see as pressure forms plates on their body and scales slither across so they may breathe in the deep water, carving into the very atoms of nature itself to succor at the power and breath of the deep darkness. The absence of creation is this deepness, this fear, this shadow. Dear listener, your charge knows this instinctively, and you, at one time, also knew this instinctively. And you will remember, the longer your life is intertwined with that of your charge. Across so many universes, with so many little differences and minor complaints, there is this, that which is feared, that which makes us tremble to see, for its truth is a carnivorous ecstasy that we yearn to achieve but can never, and so we grab and thrust and grapple for things which we bottle in pleasant words. Joy, hope, love, peace. Little signs hanging in the kitchen, proclaiming who we are and what we want, but not what we would do to grab for those bottles with the deep waters inside. What do you know? It would be better if Mary Margrave would screech, or would raise her voice in anger, but as Mary Margrave knows only justice, and not a sense of anger, she does not do so. She is wary of the mayor, and even though Julie is tied down, anchored with thick and heavy rope, and groggy to the point of slurring words, Mary Margrave paces in her sitting room with the curtains closed. It is a large window frontispiece with gilded, nearly piped, frames that make a sweet vignette for the unwise and unworldly. Mary Margrave has a shovel in her hand, slung to a point near her shoulder, looking as an extension of a head rather than as a tool being clutched to her body. "What do you know?" she asks again, without clarification. Julie does not answer. She is trying with desperation to know exactly how long she has been asleep. She is aware of her surroundings and where she is, even in her groggy state. There is a smell to the air, diatomaceous earth, as though someone is growing beets in a room nearby, and they are halfway through their growing season already. Mary Margrave is not growing beets, but is taming Nightshade. But, much like everything else in this particular universe, it is hard to decipher what is reality and what is fiction. To some, beets are as poisonous as Nightshade, and to others, Nightshade is prettier and more intoxicating and makes a fine salad. He who is in the shed has a tolerance now to Nightshade, but he is also forgotten by Mary in this moment. This This is the end of Mary Margrave. If only she could see it. If only she could change it, but even in her impassioned hubris, even in her desire for control and to water her flowers in blood, she cannot see it, nor know it, nor fight it. Sacrifice. Unnecessary sacrifice. This is something the universe reclaimed. In the world where Mary Margrave outlives Martha Margrave, the universe watches. And this one, this twisted universe that is caution more than hope, is so close to the spark of death that none living within it can see. Not the god of a water tower, or the crazed scientist bringing a man to life, not the ghostly landship seen once a year, and certainly not the mayor, who may or may not have always lived here. Mary Margrave stares at Julie Cumberland. Julie wriggles slightly, feels the strange heft of rope and the tightness of her impromptu corset still against her rib cage. She was not searched, but there would have been nothing to find. There was no weapon to well hide among the folds of Julie's clothes. "What did you do?" Julie's words slur, but just slightly, imperceptibly. It is the same thick sound that one makes as they extinguish 20 candles for a prayer or a spell, and then inhale the smoke left behind. It is someone used to rituals for imbibing, and yet a little unpracticed now. "You will answer my question first," Mary says, her voice now sharp and vicious like a sparkling spade at the beginning of a morning. Her eyes narrow, and she brings the shovel across herself on the upswing and pauses. Julie's vision pinpoints to the head of the spade, the top of the shovel. She anticipates the pain and the register of it, and she thinks back to a moment of a time, maybe last year, maybe 2 years now, where she'd held a drug dealer captive in her apartment and used him for spell work. About how his soul had taunted her, and his ghost had barked and screamed at her until it had all led to this moment, to this stiff, rotting house with this woman who looked so much like her twin sister. "Did you kill Martha? Did you drown her?" Julie asks herself only, almost out loud, as if to make sure she can hear it in her brain before she says it to the world. She is a little unsure of words at first, and then stronger and stronger, until she's more sure of history than she is of present, and says the questions aloud. "You know of my sister." Mary's lips tighten into a frightening bright smile, a grimace that cuts from ear to ear. "That will make this much easier." A sound fills the room as the downswing of the shovel moves through space. It is the swoop of a slashing motion, and Julie refuses to close her eyes and be cowed. She anticipates the pain, but when it is replaced by a sound, by the shattering of glass and the thud of something, round or small, and square, a stone, a brick. Her breath is stilled and air rushes in, filling and replacing the smell of nightshade wafting from the other room. Dear listener, please use the blank sheet of attached paper to work on your 5-minute lesson about words that sound like shatter. That is shatter. What does it mean to shatter? What is the antonym of shatter? You must practice both words in their becoming and undoing. In this advanced lesson, you will understand shatter. The antonym of shatter is ripple. Things ripple. Words ripple. Time ripples. And in the junkyard, the mix of sun and moon send light rippling off the cascading torsos. He knows why he came. He came because Michael Charles Taffet wanted him there. Took the time to write down this address that he already knew before he arrived, deep inside of himself. Louis Swan knows he's come to die. He doesn't know the pattern of it. He mourns his youngest brother more than himself. He thinks of Truist. Truist loves marshmallows roasted before adding them atop hot chocolate. A good game of Chinese checkers. The work of the Hardy Boys. Truist Swan once performed a ballet dressed as a mouse for holiday amusement, and then wore the costume until the heel of the foot tore in the tights. He took it as a symbol, and emerged and talked at length about the feeling of dance and the freedom. Louis Swan smelled seawater then, in Truist's hair. He didn't weep. He wonders, as he traverses the man-made canyons of things, why he doesn't weep, or have fear. His life is like this junkyard. He is reflecting on his life. He does not feel his age, nor really anything. His wrist aches from the practiced motion of scooping ice cream. But he is not afraid. He passes by a rack of toasters and picks one up, shakes it, brings it close to his ear, and he can smell the acrid smell of burnt toast. It rattles. "Brother?" The voice is soft at first. "Brother?" Louis Swan stills with the toaster. There are still 2 lengths of canyon aisle to go. The moonlight, at first dim, seems to gleam a little more, starts to create a tunnel of light in the canyon. Louis Swan cannot say for sure the direction, but he follows toward the light. He prays, insomuch as any Louis Swan prays, for the smell of sea water. He thinks of his mother and his youngest brother, and he walks over a dusty road. He feels a pebble in his shoe and thinks that this is meaning. This is life. When he feels the metallic claw around his neck, when it begins to squeeze and his body shudders and squirms, he still hears that voice. "Brother?" There is a sound, too, not laughter, but the sound of inquisition, a low rumble of a noise, almost inhuman, almost a purr. "Brother?" The voice softens, close now against his ear, nearly inside of his brain. Louis's vision is blurry, but the voice is there and familiar, and it brings him comfort. There is still no smell of the sea. There is something acrid to this space. It is desert. It is bereft of emotion and hope and joy and peace. In the dust now, where Louis Swan stands, stock still, there are the bodily functions that leave the mortal frame after death. It is a mixing of bowel movement and fluid and bile. When the Egyptians processed their dead, they tended to remove these impediments. It is unclear how they felt of them, whether they were holy and meant to move on with the person as one being, or if it was a welcome separation, unnecessary to be added to the scale, and therefore doing the work of their Lord of Death. Whatever the case, it is no longer an issue for this Louis Swan. Good. That shows interesting improvement, especially with use of the hand, Michael says as he fiddles with 2 buttons and levers on a little remote, and shuffles the whole silver box about his hands, the remote with which he controls extremities and directions on Thursday. There are diodes and buttons on it, and even a side panel where he can keep track of steam and something called the spark quotient, which he wrote down, but means little to him and nothing to anyone else. The spark of life, this sacrifice now, is down to one word as Truist Swan's new metal form finishes squishing the curled steel fingers around Louis's neck, and then holds the head stiff and still as the body falls in a crumpled mass to the floor.
Did you hear it? Do you see it? No. No, it can't be. What are they doing? Where are they going? Why are they crying? Get away from there! Oh, why won't you do anything?
Brother. The word brother echoes off the buildings in Surf City. You can almost see it now in the sharpness of night, the color of the word, the shape of the sound wave. The water tower seems to shiver, just slightly. The water tower groans and gurgles, and the very earth beneath it begins to creak and squelch as it begins to shiver to life. And in the junkyard, Michael Charles Taffet commands his metallic wonder Thursday onwards, towards the Founder's Stone. Surf City is an audio work of John MacDonald and John MacDonald Productions. It is meant for entertainment purposes only, and is not meant to advise anyone on lifestyle, health, or spiritual/philosophical issues of their or any time. All opinions expressed are held by the characters, and in some cases the creator of Surf City and Surf City Donuts, John MacDonald. Season 2's cosmic narrator is Jack Wicks.